Hi friends, my name is Chris Beckman and I'm the corporate chaplain for Ebenezer. And during this time of the pandemic of COVID-19, we've been trying to provide more resources for our communities. This daily or weekly set of devotions is part of that. We've also been creating worship services that are premiering every Sunday morning. If you're interested in those or more of these reflections, please reach out to your activity director or your executive director in your community. Today's reflection and devotion is number 25 in our series, and I've called it Bunking in the Chapel. Bunking in the Chapel. Some of you may know that Ebenezer's history goes back 100 years. We began in 1917 in Minneapolis, caring for Norwegian Lutherans who were often immigrants to this country, who were often not cared for well at the end of life. So church folks got together to create and establish Ebenezer in 1917 to provide homes for the aged for people of all backgrounds, Norwegians and Lutherans and immigrants of all sorts. In 1919, we built one of our first care centers, and it's on the Minneapolis campus. And many of us affectionately know this building, built in 1919, as the Grand Old Lady. And it's an old building and one that has shown wear and tear since it was built in 1919, and is struggling sometimes to provide enough care for our residents because the doors are not quite right, and some of the building is showing some wear and tear from the heat and the cooling. But for many of us, we love the Grand Old Lady. The woodwork and the care and the details that were built in the 1900s. One of my friends is Don Knutson, and Don was a longtime Lutheran pastor and chaplain at the Grand Old Lady on the Minneapolis campus for 20 plus years. Don has since retired, but he still is in our lives and in our community. And one of the stories that he told me, and I'm probably going to not say this correctly, but he told me a story about one year when they had a major snowstorm in Minneapolis. And they knew that the snowstorm was coming. And so many of the staff, out of their dedication and care, began to prepare for what would happen when the snowstorm came. And what would happen if other nurses and staff were not able to come in? And would they be able to stay in the care center and provide that round-the-clock support for the residents who live there? Remember, I said this was bunking in the chapel. One of the beautiful things that came out of that story of this snowstorm is that it did come, and it meant that a lot of the staff could not make it into work. So a dedicated group of folks stayed put, and they had come somewhat prepared, and they were going to make sure that our residents, those residents, were well cared for no matter what. But as you can imagine, working round the clock and doing the kind of work that we do together is a lot of effort. And so a number of them actually began to bunk in the chapel. And they had cots and sleeping bags all in over the place in the chapel. Now, I don't know about you, but during this time of pandemic, when many of our communities are wrestling with many of the same issues: staffing, caring for our people, caring for each other. How do we keep the infections from coming home to be with our families? How do we protect ourselves and our residents and our communities? You know, part of the wisdom of our history of caring for seniors for 100 plus years is we know what we're doing. We know the hard work involved. And the people who work with us, who are a part of our communities, are the very best of people. Back during Don Knutson's time, they bunked in the chapel. Today, many of us are wondering those same things. In fact, a number of us have go bags packed and in our cars. We have extra sets of clothes. We have a sleeping bag. We have power bars and Gatorade, all kinds of things ready in a bag. Should we be needed? Should we be called? Should the next great snowstorm hit one of our communities or one of our buildings? You see, we are mission-minded people. We have cared for people 100+ years. A snowstorm did not keep us from providing care. And this pandemic is not going to keep us from providing care. You see, we are from Norwegians in background, and they were a stubborn people, and they were a hearty people. And most importantly, they knew about caring for the people in their communities. Now, Norwegians and immigrants are still welcome in our communities, although we don't have many of them anymore. Instead, we have people from all parts of the world and all parts from our country. But the mission is still the same, caring for people in the last chapter of life. And the courage is still the same, and the devotion is still the same. And when the call comes for us to bunk in the chapel, we will pull the bags out of our cars and trucks, the bags of our clothes and sleeping bags. We will find a place to rest and to find nourishment. And we will keep doing the work that we are called to do. Thank you so much for being a part of that, and blessings on the journey ahead. Thanks for now. Bye.